Hi, welcome to the Sweet Slumber Podcast, the good, the bad, and the sleep deprived. I am your host, Meredith Bruff. I'm a wife, a mother of 5, a childcare expert, and a sleep coach. I'm here to teach you the most effective sleep advice for infants and young children. With my guidance, sleep will become something that you look forward to again, and you will feel rested. I believe that motherhood is the most important and demanding role that we have, but the challenges and accomplishments that go along with it go unnoticed frequently. We are going to talk openly about these things so that we can draw strength and compassion from each other. I will share my perspective as a seasoned mother and help you experience more fulfillment. Hi, it's Meredith from the Sweet Slumber Podcast, the good, the bad, and the sleep deprived. I am excited to be with you again today, doing my second episode. This one is about natural sleep disruptions or mental leaps. And this is a really great subject to help you understand, parallel to trusting your instincts and feeling great about all that you do as a mother, which was our last topic, because you guys deal with so much pressure from everyone, these rules that you're supposed to follow. You work so hard to build sleep habits, and then when something goes wrong, you just freak out, fall apart. So I really want to help you understand that you can still trust your instincts, you still got this, and this is just a natural thing that your child is going through. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So for those of you who don't know, a mental leap is a period when your child's brain is developing, progressing, and advancing. And your child is learning new things, new skills, new abilities. When they're really young and you look at the information that's out there about Wonder Weeks or mental leaps, there's an app, there's a book, and there's a whole bunch of other resources online. They talk about your child learning physically at the same time. Well, those, when they're older, are kind of a separate situation. When a child is learning physically, like to crawl or sit or walk or stand, it does affect sleep. But I'm going to really focus in on the mental part of this, because every time your child is growing and advancing, there's a concentrated period where that's happening. You would think it would just happen all the time. Like for you or I, when we're learning, we're just learning a little bit at a time, and we're just growing all the time. But for babies, there are these designated periods where they learn certain things. Like when your child first starts to mimic you, you'll see that in the description for that leap that month. When they start exploring and learning their voice, that's something that you would see. When they're older, like between 1 and 2, you start to see more along the lines of language development. It has to do with what they understand. It has to do with what they do physically. It has to do with the way that they understand life and the world around them. It's very exciting. So along with that, it's important to understand temperament. And I talk about temperament a lot. This is overlooked quite a bit in the sleep world, but I think it's really, really important, because all children respond according to how they're wired. So it's really important to understand your child's temperament. So let's talk about easygoing babies for a minute. When I learned about temperament in children, it was from Tracy Hogg, who is a sleep consultant, a guru for sleep. She was like a pediatric nurse. She passed away, but she has a book, or a couple of books about being the baby whisperer. And she talks a lot about temperament. And so she has this quiz, this questionnaire that you can take to figure out what your child is like. You can find that online. So you just look up temperament test and you'll find out about your child's temperament. And it's really good to know. She calls the really easygoing babies textbook or angelic. Okay. So when I talk about easygoing baby, you can do this test. You can figure out what your baby's all about. But in my experience, most of the children that come to me have a level of sensitivity. Some of them may not show up on this test. It'll say touchy baby, angelic baby, what did I say, textbook, fussy or grumpy, spirited. Did I get them all? And she'll try to lump them into each category. in the test. And I see children having traits from all of these different areas, or maybe from 2 or 3. And that's really common. So don't despair if your child isn't falling into one. That's really normal. And also, what I was saying about sensitivity is that I think all children, or sorry, a lot of children have some level of sensitivity. And this will show up, especially when a child is going through one of these mental leaps that I mentioned. So some kids can just sleep through those periods of time and they sleep great. You would never know that your child was changing. It's kind of crazy until maybe a really, really tough one like the 12-month or the 18-month. Some of them, 4 months, you hear about a lot too. So a lot of babies are going to get hit by those regressions no matter what. But there will be some children who you just never see any sign that they're going through a mental leap. So just picture a range. On this side, you've got little ones that are super easygoing and laid back and really don't respond much to changes that are going on inside. And on this side, you've got the babies that are super, super sensitive and they just fall apart when they're uncomfortable, hurting, unwell, teething, so there's your extreme other side. So your baby's going to fall somewhere in between those. Okay, the really easygoing, laid back babies, they just don't complain that much about anything. Okay, but these guys, they complain about everything and they're actually kind of confusing. You just don't know what's going on with them. So what I see is that somewhere between there, these babies fit when it comes to sensitivity. So some children that are a little tiny bit sensitive, maybe they're just sensitive to noises, loud noises, or a little bit of sunlight, or they're scared of new things like getting in the bath. But maybe it doesn't even show up on this temperament test I mentioned. Maybe that child just has a little tiny sleep disruption during a mental leap and has their naps disturbed just a tiny bit. But these babies over here, when they're going through a period of time, the really sensitive, fussy, touchy babies, when they're going through one of those periods when everything's changing internally, they're so sensitive that moms just have no idea what's going on. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but it's really hard to understand, especially with your first child, why sleep's like this, right? It's going better, yay. No, it just fell apart. And everybody's always trying to explain it and understand. So I'm going to give you a few examples about this temperament thing that I brought up, okay? You'll hear about it a lot in what I teach because I feel like it's super big. It's super important when it comes to understanding how to help your child sleep well. So let's talk about the easygoing babies again that are really laid back. So I had one of these children, and I can absolutely pinpoint other people's kids that are really easygoing and laid back. I was at church a couple weeks ago, and I was sitting there behind this family of 4, and their youngest is sitting in her car seat, just so cute and relaxed and chill. And, she would look at us and we would look back and that would make her smile. If one of her siblings looked at her, she would smile. She just sat there playing with her body and her clothing in a pacifier for about 40 minutes. And I noticed that she was getting tired. She was sitting in the aisle in the car seat. That's why I could see her. But she started getting pinker on the eyebrows. And I was like, oh, she's getting tired. Because that's the one thing that I'm always watching for with babies, is that really subtle cue so that you don't get to that point of overtiredness, right? So she made a couple little peeps. Mom turned and looked at her, give her pacifier back. She played for a little bit longer, probably 5 or 10 more minutes. And then her eyebrows got really pink and she just started getting really fussy. And then her mom reached down and picked her up and just held on to her and she went to sleep in her arms. So it was super easy and fast. And I'm sure that there's times when all children get fussy and aren't little angels. So don't get me wrong. I totally understand that that is going to happen. But for 90% of the time, these children are just so awesome. So my theory is that most of the books and the methods that are out there are written for children who are very laid back, very easygoing. So these are children that drowsy but awake. You know that one. People say, make sure that you get your child really close to sleep and then lay them down when they're drowsy and awake, but not, quite asleep. And a lot of people can actually teach their kids to put themselves to sleep this way. It's amazing to me. I don't even talk about this in my sleep group because it's just so rare. And I don't want to get parents' hopes up that this is going to work for them. These are the children that you can just pat to sleep easily. if they need any help. If they need any help is the key. A lot of people will use the time checks or the cry it out or Ferber or gentle methods that include some crying for these kids. And it doesn't even take that much. It's pretty easy. The child will learn really quickly and it's just not a big deal. So that's why those methods are really popular, because there's these kids that are so laid back. It's just not that hard to teach them. And parents just don't get it. They think that they've done something right. Well, what about the parents who can't figure it out? They didn't do anything wrong. So this is just such a good thing to understand. Okay. So these babies make the rest of them look bad, basically. But most babies are not that easygoing, and they all have some level of sensitivity. So there'll be like this, that range is here. Maybe this part of the range, easygoing to just a little bit sensitive. Those kids will all do okay with those methods. But then there's this really big pocket, this really big number of children who just won't. So my purpose today isn't just to talk about that, but I want you to understand why it's hard to teach your child. And if they're sensitive, this range I'm talking about here, and they're going through leaps and teething and all the sleep disruptions that go on, which I'll mention again in a minute, they are going to suffer more and need more from you, and they're going to sleep terribly. It's going to affect way more in their sleep, especially. So first, let's talk about some ways for you to know if your child is sensitive at all, besides seeing them disturbed during those leaps, which, by the way, you can find out about the schedule and the timing of those by getting that Wonder Weeks app or getting a book and looking into resources online. So the Wonder Weeks app, or just look up mental leaps or developmental periods. So like I said, your child could be a little bit sensitive to noises, bright lights, new things. Also, your child could be one that gets rashes. A lot of the sensitive babies also have a lot of problems with their stomachs. So they're the ones that are really gassy, spit up, or have silent reflux, which is more like heartburn. And then these kids can be really particular and want things a certain way. Like if you hold your baby wrong, they get mad. I don't know if any of you have seen this before, but I have. They're very particular. And then when they don't feel well, they kind of overreact. A lot of times their communications are confusing, and you just have a really hard time reading their cues, whether or not you are really in tune, because they're so sensitive. It's hard to know what's going on. These babies will cry when they're wet or wet, or have a messy diaper more than other children. And then when they're tired, they just get so cranky. They don't feel well. When they're hungry, same thing. They can be really hard to console, really intense. And then these are also the kids who just really want to be held, and they really love affection when they're tired, when they're not feeling well, not all day long necessarily, but it's the way to calm them, to hold them. We'll talk about that again in a second too. So like I said, during those times when they're changing mentally, their sleep could be really, 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 really bad, or just a little bit bad, where maybe the naps are short. Maybe they're waking up once or twice a night. And then the sensitive ones, everything is falling apart. I'll give you a little example. So imagine that you've been working so hard at sleep, and you get used to sleeping for 8 to 10 hours at night. You're feeling like your world is complete and life is good. And you've worked so hard to get to this point, and you're just enjoying it. Then suddenly, overnight, your child just starts waking up a few times, and all of a sudden your baby's demanding a bottle, and it's been a really long time since you gave a bottle or breastfeed. Acting kind of demanding, like say you try to put your child down, and all of a sudden he fusses when you lay him down in the crib, but he used to transfer and he used to be okay. And now you start to notice that he's even waking up right after you lay him down. And it kind of gets worse from there on, especially if you have a sensitive baby, because sometimes it'll start out a little bit more subtle and get worse and worse, where you cannot lay them down. They're screaming or crying or really upset, and they want to be held all night long. So a lot of moms will go to co-sleeping during these times, because otherwise they wouldn't sleep. So during leaps, they also fight their sleep. They skip naps. They wake up frequently, I mentioned, with the shorter naps. They're wide awake in the middle of the night. It could be 30 minutes. It could be 2 hours. They might wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning and want to start their day. Some kids will wake up even earlier. It's so sad. This is an awful feeling of doom and gloom for moms, whether their children were sleeping good and they're like, what happened? Or their kids already slept bad and now it's way worse and hard to manage. So when I go into sleep groups, moms ask for help in these situations about 75% of the time or more. Sometimes I think it's 9 times out of 10. I'll go into a group and I'll skim all the questions and I'll look closely and I'll ask some questions about what's going on. You know, is their child acting older? Did sleep fall apart suddenly? Are they acting really moody and emotional and demanding? Or that stuff doesn't have to be there. It could just be some more sleep disruptions and acting older. And that's what I find almost all the time. It's that. And then sometimes families are going through the teething at the same time. And it might be back to back because mental leaps for the first few months, they last for about a week and they're every month. And then at 3.5 months, babies start leaps for 5 weeks. It's crazy hard. And these leaps have a little break, not the leaps, but the baby will have a little break. And then another one will start for 4 weeks. Some babies go longer than 4 or 5 weeks. So with hardly any break, if teething happens too, it's just nonstop. When they're 3.5 months up to like 2 years old, it's almost every other month that these leaps happen. So it's really hard for moms with sensitive babies. Can you imagine? In those groups that I mentioned, parents or sleep consultants are always trying to solve the problem. So parents will post their question. They'll say, what's going on? I don't understand. What happened? Does anyone know what's going on? And people will try to fix it, you know, by looking at the environment, looking at the schedule. That's the most popular. And, you know, of course, they want to tell them to do Ferber or cry it out. But this is a time when a child is just responding to what's going on naturally. So understanding that it's just the way these babies feel, that they're miserable and uncomfortable and overstimulated and wired and they can't sleep. They're moody, they need more comfort. They just aren't themselves. It's really good to know that, because if you can't offer more comfort and help to your child, then they're going to feel even worse. And so are you. Because it's just miserable to not understand what's going on. So let's see. I'm just looking at my notes here to make sure that I cover everything. Can you see why I daydream often about wanting a magic wand? I feel so helpless so often. So one of the most important things that I've worked on for these families is to look up resources that help children feel better, because helping them feel better means that there's a little less burden on mom to fix everything. Mom might get a little better sleep. The child might need just a little bit less. So please do some research, look up homeopathic remedies for teething and herbal remedies for teething, herbal remedies for mental leaps. You just have to look at what's okay for children, babies, and you have to make sure that you understand what is soothing, what is calming, what gives pain relief, or, you know, makes them more comfortable, and what helps them feel sleepy, like lavender. You know, that's an example. But there's herbs out there, there's oils out there. You just have to understand the right way to use those. And I believe in doubling, tripling up on those things and help your child. Also remember that breastfeeding is a natural pain reliever. So if your child is going back to it or doing it way more often, that's probably because they're uncomfortable, they're in pain, they need comfort. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit again about some of those exceptions. I always see exceptions. People will tell me that their kid is completely different than everybody else's. I'll try to tell you something to expect, and there's always an exception. Okay, so I was saying that some children will not show any signs of leaps, and then they'll go through times when, you know, you'll be able to tell at 12 months or 18 months they're going through something. So the other exception would be to be mindful of, don't expect your child to never, that's my point, never show signs of leaps if they haven't yet. The other exception would be If teething and leaps are happening at the same time, then you'll probably know that it's happening, So just try to remember what all these signs are and understand about the range of sensitivity. I've been going out of order in my notes, so I might sound a little confusing right now trying to figure out where I'm at. But instead of asking everyone what you're doing wrong when you're going through these periods and you're confused, I think that it's really important to help your child through it, to focus on that and focus on taking care of yourself, taking it easy on yourself. I was just remembering how bad I was about taking care of myself as a new mom. I had a basement apartment in a big house, and the kitchen was upstairs, and I would take care of my little guy all day long, and I would fall asleep whenever I could, and I would not remember to eat or drink till like 5 p.m., which is so bad. But I understand. So it's really hard to take care of yourself. And the other thing that I mentioned was focus on helping your child through it. So, people are always telling you not to pick up your child and not spoil them and don't hold them too much and all these sorts of things. But I mentioned sensitive babies, they need affection, they need physical touch. This is how you regulate their emotions. All babies need their emotions regulated by their parents or caregivers. Toddlers too, small children, because they don't know how to calm themselves until they're like preschool age. So sensitive children are much harder to calm, and they really, really depend on that. So I just want you to understand that you shouldn't feel bad about having to pick up your child. You shouldn't feel bad when your child wants to be held for long periods. These little ones need a lot more help, so they don't just sit in a car seat and fall asleep. You can't just lay them down in a bed and have them fall asleep. If they get tired or hungry, sick or uncomfortable, they fuss and they need help going to sleep by holding, feeding, bouncing, or rocking them. It can be a lot of work. So you moms that have that much work and life is that stressful, I just want you to know that you are awesome. You're going to so much effort for your child. It's so admirable. Don't let anyone tell you that you're doing it wrong, that you should have sleep trained sooner, that you should ignore your children's cries. You know your baby best, and you probably know exactly what your baby wants, but you don't know if you're doing what is best for your child or what is going to help in the long run. So just follow your instincts. Think about how your child feels. And even when it comes to teething, I don't want to talk about that very much because we're focused on the mental leaps. But even if you can't see teeth, just understand that your child will feel uncomfortable or pain from teething for weeks or months, and it will come in waves. So before you even see the teeth. So it's just confusing to be a mom. And if you have a sensitive kid, it's so hard. So when a child is in distress and not feeling well and you're not in the room, they're going to kind of freak out. They're going to be feeling like they're in major distress. Babies and toddlers need a lot more help going to sleep during tough times or going back to sleep. The sensitive ones need it more than other babies. So I've kind of mentioned this already, but parents decide that they want to do sleep training during these periods because their kids' sleep has fallen apart and gotten so hard, so bad. And it's understandable. I mean, I hear moms all the time. They're not sleeping at all. They're falling apart. They feel like they're dying or they're going to not be able to make it another day. Or they're just really freaked out because they're like, oh no, I created a monster. How are we going to survive if I don't teach my child right now? It's just going to get worse. Okay. So those are some of the thoughts and feelings that go through parents' minds when their child is going through a mental leap and teething. So it's really understandable. And as I talk about this, I want you to know that I am never, ever judgmental, and I understand. But I just want to offer you some insight and help you understand your child. So one thing that I think is funny is that it's often the dad who says, "It's time, dear. It's time to teach." Time to do the sleep training. But moms are the ones who are always looking for the solutions and trying to figure it out. So just remember, even with your husband or partner's pressure, babies need your compassion. They need your understanding and patience when they're going through these times. because of how they feel. They need more compassion, and they need every ounce of energy and love that you have. I know that many of you are doing just that. You're giving more than you thought was humanly possible. Some babies will put you through endless months of torture because of all the changes. The children who aren't sensitive will be easy to teach strong habits to. Parents of babies like this will have lots of options open to them. I prefer gentle methods for all types of babies because I believe they create permanent sleep habits that are resilient. Even after these periods, they go back to them. Being responsive consistently through childhood and adolescence will produce happy, thriving, and emotionally connected adults. Meeting children's needs teaches them to feel secure and to trust their little world. This leads to strong emotional health and strong bonds with their caregivers. If you've tried or plan to try Cry It Out or Fervor or Time Checks, like I said, I understand. It's common, it's acceptable. My way isn't better than your way. I just want you to understand that gentle and non-crying methods are effective, and they're easier on parents and children. I want you to know the benefits, and I want you to imagine the end results for motivation. And I want you to know that lots of babies and young children won't progress at all until gentle or non-crying methods are applied. I teach non-crying methods, which people just haven't heard of. Sensitive children learn best from gentle and non-crying methods because they need the responsiveness. They need you to meet their needs. They fight to be heard. They have strong opinions, and they don't let go of their concerns easily. But we don't want them to stop crying for help and communicating what they need. Since these babies won't come unless you figure out what way works best, I just want you to know that this is one of those things that works best for them. So I want to give you some tips on how to handle these periods, okay? Like I said, help them feel better. So there's the herbal remedies, the homeopathic remedies, breastfeeding, double up, triple up, and help your child feel better so that they don't depend on you quite so much. Be flexible. Sometimes your child won't take a long nap or a regular nap. They'll fight their sleep. They're going to take short naps. Set some limits and boundaries for yourself. Like if a child takes half an hour to go to sleep usually, and you're working at that for 2 hours, that's just not going to work. The child is going to have cortisol and adrenaline built up, and you need to have some limits for your sanity. You can't do that all day, every day. So if it doesn't work after a certain amount of time, you need to stop and just let your child burn off all that stuff. And then you can try it again the next time, the next wake window ends, or an hour, hour and a half before trying again, just for your sanity, okay? Also, just expect it to happen, especially if you're aware of the timing of the leaps and watching your child for signs. You're gonna know that something's off. They feel wired, overstimulated, uncomfortable. Those are the reasons they can't sleep. So, like I said, expect it, and that will just help you gauge your expectations so that you can handle it better. But if your child skips naps or fights their sleep a lot and isn't rested enough, then put your baby to bed about 15 to 30 minutes early. That way it won't really affect the sleep patterns from night to night, and the child won't think it's a nap. So let's see. I said to expect things to not go perfectly. Well, I could say it another way. Expect things to go wrong and to be all over the place. Let go of your to-dos as much as you can. And I know that's hard, guys. I've been on bed rest before with a 2-year-old or 1.5-year-old. It was so hard. I couldn't stand it. I had to sit on the couch, watch him run around. I could, change his diaper and get his food and stuff. But I had to just look at my messy house and my laundry and my floor that needed to be vacuumed for 8 weeks. I had some people come and take care of me, and that was so sweet, and I've never been more grateful. But it was an eye-opener to me about how hard it is to not have control over your time and being able to get things done and the situation. So that brings me to my next one. Let go of control. I feel like that is the moral of the story when you become a parent, to accept that you are no longer in control of life or very much at all. Go with the flow and let go. I think it will help you a lot. It's not easy. So another tip for you, get support in a group on Facebook or community. Turn to your friends. Make sure that you don't feel alone if you're going through these mental leap periods and it's really hard. Ask for help. So you might feel like you do most of the work, or maybe your partner or husband doesn't really know how to help with the baby. This is the time to make that possible. Maybe you have a grandparent that can get involved, or an aunt, or an uncle, a friend. Maybe you can hire help, get a doula, but whatever you can, try to find ways to take breaks for yourself. That might mean 2 minutes of deep breathing. It might mean taking a walk during nap time or a car ride. Use the sling or baby carrier instead of working on naps. Um, Use affirmations. I love these because it really helps us take control of our thoughts. So in those moments when you're super frustrated, if you're thinking something to yourself that's really positive, you're going to feel better. And it's hard, and you have to repeat it and work at it. Take care of yourself by eating well and drinking water. If you can share the burden at night with a partner or one of your parents, do so. You don't want to end up in the hospital. You need your sleep. Do whatever you can. Use the Wonder Weeks app or the book. Look at the skills list to know which leap you're in. From the Wonder Weeks app or book, there's an actual skills list that will tell you what's going on, what your child is learning. And that can be helpful for parents who have premature children and they don't know which leap their kids is in. You'll be able to tell. And also, if you follow that list, you'll know how much longer you have to go in a leap. It's really nice. Enjoy the good moments when they come. And that is our rule for all parents, to try to slow down and be in the moment. It can be really hard, especially when you are stressed or worried or you have things to do. You're not yourself. But this can be something very healing and soothing when you are in these situations. Pray, make yourself laugh. I took a class on stress relief this year, and that's one of the things I learned, is that you can actually have like a list of things maybe in your phone, like favorite clips, jokes, videos, songs, things that make you laugh. Or you can just fake laugh, and it actually is good for you. It can help you relax and release endorphins, I believe. So do yoga, go for walks, get some fresh air, just go outside. If you're really frustrated and upset, put your child in a safe place and go by yourself for 5 to 10 minutes so you can calm down. At night, and when your child is going to sleep, when they're the most demanding, don't fight what they're demanding. Let go. Forget the rules. Follow your instincts. Let your child feed to sleep. Let your child be rocked, be held. Co-sleep if you need to. I think that's important. If you're sleep deprived and it works for you, it doesn't work for everyone. Feed your baby. They're trying to tell you that that's what they need when they're acting that demanding and you're giving into it. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel bad. There will be time to build sleep habits when your child is in a better mood and more cooperative, okay? What's most important during these times is that you're loving your child, that you're there for him or her, that you're learning to be strong, that you're learning about your child's needs and you're understanding your child's temperament. You're creating bonds. Your instincts are sharpening. You're learning to appreciate the good times and the good things about life. You won't take things for granted so easily anymore. You're going to appreciate good, strong sleep habits for sure. You're going to appreciate a smooth bedtime. You're going to appreciate long nights of sleep, perfect naps when and if they happen. You're going to appreciate your child's moods. You're going to appreciate your own good moods. You're going to appreciate it when your child is sleeping more independently, like you would not believe. You're going to appreciate your free time and self-care, time with friends, time with your partner, your support system. These are things that we take for granted. And we've all learned this year especially that there's a lot we take for granted. So that's the good thing about opposites. We experience those things and they open our eyes and help us appreciate our lives. And when we appreciate and enjoy them more, I feel like you get the most out of your life. You get the most out of your relationships. Hard times can turn out to make life better and sweeter. So remember that this period your child is in right now, or these periods that your child goes through, are natural. You haven't caused bad habits. You aren't to blame. You didn't mess up. No one can control what's going on. What's going on is leading to progress for your child. It's exciting. I hope that you have learned to understand your child's needs better so that you can feel more compassionate for yourself and your child. I hope that you feel good about following your instincts so that you question yourself less. You're a wonderful mother, and you're doing a great job raising your child. Next time we talk, I'll give you some tips on how to build sleep habits during mental leaps and teething and these disruptions, since this is one of the biggest challenges, even for me. But sure teaches me a lot so that I can pass it on to you. And remember that you can join my sleep group called Successful Sleep on Facebook to learn more. And if you feel like you've tried everything and you're feeling stuck, I can offer you hope and help you restore your sleep through my programs. Click on Work With Me or Free Consult at sweetslumbertime.com to get started. And thank you for being here today. I really enjoyed this. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Sweet Slumber Podcast, the good, the bad, and the sleep deprived. If you enjoyed the show today, please take a moment to write a review, leave a rating, and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. This will also help more mothers find my show. Thanks for listening.